Good evening and welcome to the April 22nd, 2024 meeting of the Akron Public School Board. Roll call, please, Dr. Thompson.
Mr. Alexander.
Present.
Ms. Autry.
Present.
Ms. Hall.
Present.
Ms. Jackson.
Present.
Dr. Molnar.
Present.
Mrs. Sykes.
Present.
6 present, 1 absent.
Thank you. Next, we will have our Pledge of Allegiance. If you're able to stand, please do so. Vice President Jackson, would you please lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next on our agenda is item 1.3, Mandarin program from Pifer. Dr. Robinson.
Thank you, President Autry. I would like to introduce Dr. Lloyd Dang Nguyen, supervisor of our K-12 ESL and world languages, who will share some very exciting world language news with you about the Mandarin program over at Pifer.
Thank you, Dr. Robinson. It is truly an honor to be here this evening to share with you great things that are happening in the World Languages Department. Akron Public Schools has always prioritized providing its students with a rich and diverse world language curriculum, offering Mandarin Chinese, French, and Spanish to students across the districts in middle schools and high schools, with additional offerings for our elementary IB students. However, this January, a new chapter unfolded when Akron Public Schools embarked on an exciting journey to introduce Mandarin Chinese to 3 elementary buildings: Helen Arnold CLC, Krause CLC, and Pifer Elementary School. And today we have some special guests here to share with you about this wonderful program. I'd like to introduce the principal of Pifer Elementary School, Mrs. Tina McIntyre, who will introduce our special guests this evening.
Thank you, and good evening. I am so proud and excited to be here as principal. First of all, as principal of Pifer Elementary School, but then able to represent my outstanding students and staff. We have Mrs. Miller, our Mandarin teacher, and our first and second grade students are here today, and they're going to share what they have learned in 1 semester. Then we're going to ask if you have any questions. Board members, feel free to ask our students any of those questions after their performance. And before they leave, they have a special gift just for you in celebration of our Lunar New Year, the Year of the Dragon.
Shoulder, ear, head, up, down. 1, 2, 3. Ni hao, wo chao, zaijian, zaijian. Ni hao, 什么名字？你好，什么名字？你好，什么名字？你好，什么名字？Try 1, 2, 3. Ni hao, wo cha, Conan, wo cha, Liu Shui. Ni hao, wo jiao, Ryan, wo jiao, Liu Shui. Wo jiao, Liu, wo qi,
Sway. Sway.
At this time, if there's anyone that may have a question for the students.
Thank you very much, students. Amazing job. Do we have any questions at all for our young scholars? Mr. Alexander.
What grade are they?
First and second
First
grade.
and second grade. Did a good job, all of you. Very good job.
Did you get one? Okay. Okay. All right, that concludes our presentation for you.
Excellent job, scholars.
Thank you.
Dr. Molnar, you have a question?
Comment. I was gonna say, 谢谢, ni hao, where's your Dr. Molnar? Well, the number doesn't matter, right? Yes. So you all did such a great job. I know it can be hard and can be confusing, but thank you so much. And I have a question if anybody feels like answering. What is the favorite thing that you've learned so far?
How much classroom time do they get in the lessons? How much classroom time do they get?
45 minutes a week. Yes. Yes, 45 minutes.
This was an initiative that we did when we first got here. And so we were testing to see how it would work within the 3 schools that it's being implemented in. And so this is an example of what they're actually doing. So we want to try to expand it for them next year.
Vice President Jackson.
Thank you. I think this is excellent. My daughter actually went to STEM and took Mandarin Chinese at STEM, an excellent teacher there. And it's like over 920-something million people speak the Mandarin as the first language. So when you think about that, especially on the continent of Asia, how that makes our kids marketable for a global economy, it's just great things are happening at APS. So just thank you all for your work with our learners with that and exposing them to that and for reinforcing it. I think this is a great opportunity for our kids, and I'm excited to see as they progress on, especially in the specific clusters. I'm glad to see Helen Arnold and Krause. This is great. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on. Next on our agenda is item 1.4, community and school reflections. Are there any community and school reflections? Dr. Molnar?
All right, are we doing that? Okay. Okay. My community reflections, I'm going to try again to keep it in this 3 minutes, and I'm going to try to focus everything around listening to the community and our student voice. We don't have our student voice scholar today, but we are listening to our community. Our community reflections are shorter. Our calendar has times, so I'm excited every opportunity we can to respond to our community and be involved in our community. This Saturday, I was at King CLC for their Centennial Earth Day celebration, and it was so meaningful for me to bring my kindergartner to the place where I went to kindergarten. But last Saturday, I was also at Helen Arnold CLC for a United Way event, where it was a community event, and community members were asking for more opportunities to hear from our students and to hear successes from our amazing students. And so I was so pleased then yesterday, when I opened up the Akron Beacon Journal and I saw an article about our students at Helen Arnold. You know, our Bookdale students went to Helen Arnold, our masonry students, and they made the new concrete flower beds, and they were student designs, and there were things about the students mentoring their younger students, and the younger students got to see the things that the older students were going to do. And I thought about how, you know, I went back to King and the building was different than when I went to school there, but these students might come back with their children to Helen Arnold and see the things that they built, the lasting concrete beds that they built, and the quotes. You know, the students were quoted, the teachers and staff were quoted, so they highlighted and amplified the positive stories and the students of their voice. And so I really appreciated that. It was a very warm weekend for me. And also last week on April 17th, I actually was at an Akron Roundtable event where Ms. Pingale, who wrote the Helen Arnold story, got to meet our students. Our Akron Early College students were there, and it was an event about the importance, the vital role of local news, and how having regular news stories is really helpful. And so our students got to meet one of the people who is writing about their school, their community, them, asking and interviewing them. And I know it's not just the Akron Beacon Journal. We have, you know, Signal wrote an article about our full-day pre-K. Spectrum had an article lately about our World Championship robotics team. We got good coverage, IdeaStream about our Yonder pouches and that initiative. And so we have so many wonderful things, so many great examples. And the last thing I want to talk about, Saturday night, I went to the Catalina show for our Firestone synchronized swimming team. And it was amazing. I'm going to run out of time, but I'm going to try. This was not just a performance that the instructor put on. The students choreographed it. The students wrote the scripts. The students were the MCs. The students were even the lifeguards. The students made the costumes. Synchronized swimming is something that has made national news for their outfits, and the students chose swimsuits with modesty, with leggings and socks and tights and gloves, and it was such a student-centered, wonderful event, everything we're asking for. So it's just a full circle about the wonderful things our students, and highlighting what our students are doing all around our community. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Molnar. Are there any other school and community reflections? Member Sykes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Madam Chair, and members of the committee. Unfortunately, my school reflection, my community reflection is not a fun one. For we had a 15-year-old who was shot, and a member of the East High School CLC. We passed a resolution whereby we stated that we supported what the mayor was doing as it related to choosing a new police chief. And we passed that resolution with the comments that we want them to recognize that our students are children, and that even though they may look grown up, that we know that they are still mentally just still developing. So when I saw the tape of the young man on the ground after being shot and saying, "It's a fake, it's a fake," I just came from my cousin's funeral. And my grandmother lives down the street. It was so difficult to watch, knowing that a 15-year-old young person is telling the police officer, "I'm dealing with a death probably the first closest person to die in his life at 15. This is a fake, but he was shot anyway. As the police rolled up on him, as the film showed, there was not very much time for him to do anything before he was shot. Now, this is a young man that it was a fake gun, but yet he's been charged with carrying a fake gun. The police officer was charged in his life with allegedly threatening to kill his girlfriend and her father. Mayor Horgan determined that he was unfit to serve, but yet he was back on the street and he shot one of our children. And we sit here as if, isn't that a shame? And ironically, the next meeting will be at East CLC on Saturday as we talk about what we want to see in a police officer and in the police force. Shame on us that we will sit here and act as if nothing has happened in this community. How can our children trust us when we say we care about them? We want them to learn. We want them to grow up and to become successful. But yet we find ourselves here with a child being shot and charged with carrying a fake gun, and the person that shot him carried a real gun, pointed it at someone, and was put back on the Akron Police Force. Shame on us and all of the elected officials that say they support our children and they want our children to succeed. Shame on us.
Thank you, Member Sykes. Are any other community and school reflections? Vice President Jackson?
Yes, last week I had the pleasure of visiting Finley CLC, and I met with Nick of the Akron After School Program, and he showed me the various gardening things that our students are doing there, which is providing food. Hopefully, the goal for the community to be able to come and source food from there. It also showed the ingenuity of our students in building bird houses and bird feeders, and so I thought that was a really good program and a lot of support that they're receiving. And Mr. Nicolino, up further at North, he has the program, and he came and presented to the board. And so Nick and his team, they have an abundance of seeds that they're going to also help to support programming, because funding is limited for these after-school programs, and we even know that some of them are going to be cut out of need. So hopefully we can find community partnerships to help support that, to keep our kids engaged in more positive activities after school, so that they don't find themselves in any type of situations of a negative type. Additionally, Bookdo's PBS store is opening this week, Wednesday. We're going to do a walkthrough. As I understand it, also donations have been asked for. Please look up to contact Dreamer Whitfield or even myself to ask what exactly you can do. But I know they are accepting donations of specific items. So if to be clear on what you can do to help, please contact Dreamer Whitfield. She's doing a wonderful job with our young people, and even with Scholar Voice. Lastly, I also went to North High School for Scholar Voice, and Ace Epps from Chase Banks was there, and the students were very informed. You can tell it was a very engaging process. They talked about financial literacy, investing, and how to be good stewards of their money and their finances, and they talked about many of their takeaways. It's just wonderful things are happening as far as Scholar Voice. I was sad to hear, because when you're trying to do so much, all the work that Dreamer does. We know what Stancy's does with our parents in the community, and that is the groundwork that builds up a strong foundation of our students. So to hear about limited funds for that, again, I'm also looking and wonder about community support and how can we more support the programs if we're about Scholar Voice that helps to promote Scholar Voice and opportunities that they have. It was an event Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity had for leaders and scholars, and they were funding our students, but we couldn't secure busing, although they were paying. So it wouldn't have been out of pocket, but it was just securing busing. And so things like that are things that I'm concerned about to make sure that our students are able to maximize on every opportunity that's provided with them, especially when it's community relationships and collaboration. But I just want to give a shout out to Dreamer Winfield and also Stancy for all the work that they're doing for our communities and for our families, because it really matters to those families. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Jackson. Are there any other community and school reflections? So, seeing none, I'll just end by stating that since we last met, I had the opportunity to attend Buchtel's cosmetology and senior presentation hair show this past Friday. And it was an amazing presentation. You could see the hard work of the students, not only beauticians, but nails. And what I absolutely loved about it was the collaboration between our cosmetology pathway and our masonry pathway, who created an amazing set. It had 2 stairwells on each side, so the models were able to come down the stairs, and it said Studio 1040. So it was just, the students were really energized. The energy in the auditorium was amazing. They put in a lot of hard work, so shout out to all of those seniors over there in the masonry program, the leadership, the principal, the teacher, and just the collaboration in their presentation. It was really appreciated. Okay, so next on our agenda is item 3.1, is College and Career Academies of Akron Elementary School Master Plan presentation. Dr. Robinson. We'll be hearing from Mrs. Ebright.
Good evening, Superintendent, members of the board. We're going to briefly give you some updates around where we're at with our elementary addendum work, just to sort of set the stage and remember that we have been College and Career Academies now since 2018. Isn't that crazy? With the first year starting with North in 2017, a few years of planning before that, before we did that work. So here we are 7 years later. Part of the master plan that was written at that time started with the high school academies, right? And that master plan always intended for us to set the foundation and work inside the middle school to better prepare our scholars for those high school experiences and to wrap around elementary, college, and career academies. So we are pleased to be able to share with you tonight the addendum that would be added to that master plan, and give you some of the highlights that's occurred inside of that. We've had a lot of people that have been working on this. I think I gave you a copy there on your desks. I'd like to recognize some people. We've had family members, administrators, teachers, counselors, students were all in helping us phrase out and work out the plans as they came together. We have a couple members here in the audience that were key in sort of helping us put some of that together. I'd like to recognize Ms. Bronlyn Thurman, if she wouldn't mind standing. Thank you. She's program manager for the GAR Foundation, and they're a major funding partner of ours. They do all of our essential experiences for the past several years. They were key in helping us work on the business engagement tactical plan and the career explorations piece and the out of school time piece. So we're pleased that Ms. Bronlyn's here, and we also have with us tonight Ms. Denise Schaefer. She's Denise, if you mind standing, Vice President of Programs for Junior Achievement. She co-chaired the College and Career Explorations Tactical Plan with us as well. Thank you very much for being here tonight. So as we talk about this tonight, our strategic blueprints that we've been working and framing all of our work around and our 4 cornerstones aligns really tightly with the work that we've been doing in College and Career Academies. We could easily be able to see the match and how the tactical plans are helping move that work. So in the Forward NGL network The transformation strands that they support us with are things like transforming teaching and learning. That's our achievement cornerstone. Transforming the culture and systems of schools. That's our culture cornerstone, right? And transforming the way that we do business partnerships in our schools. And of course, that's our partner, family, and community engagement piece. So nice alignment. It was not something new or outside of the work that we're doing. We were able to really see how those alignments came together to continue that work. As we looked through this transformation support and all the people that came together, I want to make sure that I recognize United Way of Summit and Medina, the Akron Community Foundation, the GAR Foundation, as all convening organizations that around the city that support this work as we've done the transformation model in college and career academies. They provide staff members to help us recruit business partners and civic organizations, higher organizations, government structures as we work through our advisory boards, professional associations, and they help connect those real experiences into our schools. We also have our steering committee that meets 3 times a year, which is the oversight committee, again consisting of community partners and staff and teachers to look at the different tactical plans and their implementation and what's being successful, what we need their advice with, and how we can continue to deepen that work. So looking back at those transformation strands, as we worked through this process, one of the things we came back to this fall was the idea that how do we look at those transformation strands in elementary? You have on your table a designation letter from Ford. We presented to them during the right before Akron in Action conference, and then they presented that designation to us at Akron in Action. This makes us the only pre-K through 12 district in the world, because they are worldwide now, that's received this particular designation. And looking at this elementary work is very unique in the type of work that people are trying to do as you transform the type of experiences and partner engagement and learning that's happening in our classrooms. So as sort of a summary of those big ideas and what they would look like in elementary as compared to the strands in secondary, was really scaffolding professional learning under our transforming teaching and learning, being responsive to the culture that we're teaching through an inquiry framework. It's basically that you need to know the kids in order to teach the kids, right? And get them to be wonderers and questioners. Developing a system to support those higher level thinking that we're looking for in our elementary students. So that strand was blown out into several areas throughout the tactical plan. Transforming the cultures of systems and schools. We looked at those grade level experiences, those guaranteed experiences that we have pre-K through 12. All of those are ways that we're ensuring equity for all of our students to be deeply ingrained in their community through those local civic and cultural institutions. How are we building up student voice and leadership in our youngest scholars? How are we collaborating with the scholar and teacher about what their learning goals are and their environments? And the portrait of an elementary scholar, practice and demonstration. You've seen the secondary scholar. I'm sure you've seen the portrait of an elementary scholar as it's been out there in the schools. It was one of those areas that elementary schools couldn't wait for. They couldn't wait for the addendum. They started working on it because they knew they wanted to really start setting those competencies early for our students. They also knew that they wanted to give them chances to practice those things. Traditional sort of ratings of competencies in young scholars is that you're a good studier, you're a good listener, and somebody sort of objectively told you that. And maybe never gave you the chance to practice being a good listener, to practice being kind, to practice being a collaborator. So the elementary scholar really sets up that framework for them to practice and be able to demonstrate and to be leaders in that work. And then really looking at how we're transforming the work of how our partners are engaging with our schools. So there's going to be a governance structure, which we're leveraging our existing model to grow into the elementaries, strategic partnerships that align to future opportunities. So how are we thinking purposefully around the experiences that our community is giving to our students that better prepare them for really what opportunities are here in Akron for them and life beyond school? Our out-of-school time network has been framed out. It's been a lot of work's been moving on that already around the city, and just a shared ownership and accountability between our leaders in our schools and around the city around what's happening in our partnerships. So those strands, as we saw them, of how we're setting sort of this elementary, again, unique to Akron because we had to look at the traditional secondary models. There's a few elementary models out there that other schools are using, but they're starting about third grade. So what's been happening so far? We started the master plan for CCAA was in 2016. In 2020, we came together. Strategy committees framed the work to develop a scholar that demonstrate those skills. So that portrait of an elementary scholar came first. That served as our North Star for all the work and conversations that came later because we knew what we wanted to get to and the type of scholar we were trying to build. In the fall of 2020, a 110-member master planning committee came together, made up of various partners, and we had our first big master planning session where they looked at this question: what must the College and Career Academies of Akron elementary school experience look like, feel like, and sound like? From there, they came up with the different topics for the tactical plans that you'll see in your book. And then they came back together and said, how will those action plans fuel the transformation work of elementary schools? They broke into teams, and people identified areas of passion that they might have had. So if they were passionate about out-of-school time work for students, that was a team they may have come together on. And then they had subcommittee meetings where they researched, planned, strategized, and came up with ideas. We reviewed those tactical plans throughout 22 and 23. We had educator feedback in January of 22 that year, where we put out all the plans as they were in draft form at that time to every elementary APS educator, and they provided all the feedback to the chairs and the writers to look at them and make sense of it and incorporate that feedback. We had the focus team and strategic teams have been working since this fall of 2023. And we had an instructional policy presentation in January of 24. And of course, here we are today with our presentation we gave to Ford and their designation in February. So I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Mary Otley to just give you an overview about what the 9 tactical plans are and the outcomes that we're trying to get out of them.
Okay, so you just heard Marcy give you an overview of our journey to where we are today. And I'm going to give you just an overview of the work that came out of the 2 master planning sessions. So with the over 100 plus people that were represented, that Marcy said consisted of teachers and principals and partners from our community, and we also had students play a role. The 9 topics that turned into plans started with robust student leadership. And so the concept behind this is, how do we empower our students to become leaders? Our second plan is social development. This is where we identify strategies that will help our scholars learn to resolve issues, where they can practice empathy, resolve conflicts. Does it sound like we're trying to make our students problem solvers so that they can figure out how to get out of issues without possibly using anything physical? It's all about, let's use our mental minds, because usually a concern starts with words. And so it's empowering them to try to understand each other and to talk through their issues and to come to resolution. Also, we know another very powerful piece is our family engagement. We want our families to feel like they are our partners, because they are. They're their child's first teacher, and we want to equip them to help us along their educational journey. So we want to make sure that they feel like they have a voice at the table through this process. Our out-of-school time partners. This work is focused on, we have partners that provide extended day opportunities to our scholars. This is making sure our work is aligned. So it's not looking like they're working on one set of goals and strategies and then APS is working on another. But but instead we're coming together to have one vision, one focus, and some strategies to help ensure that we're enhancing student achievement during the day, and then again when they participate in our extended day programming. Our career exploration, you heard Denise is in the room. Part of our work here started even with which partners already have programs that can come into the classroom and help to supplement and bring that college and career lens into our curriculum. Remember, at elementary, we are all about exploration and gaining awareness of what actually exists. So often our kids will say, what do you want to be when you grow up? Well, they want to be things that they're more familiar with. I want to be a teacher. I want to be a police officer. Those are things that they may see in their everyday lives. So we want to make sure that we're equipping them with opportunities that they can dare to dream and understand that there's more opportunities out there for them. And so part of this business engagement and career exploration, they go together, is giving them that opportunity to see what exactly exists. Part of the work we were doing with Denise is we wanted to create a career expo where we would have our partners come in and actually share their careers with our scholars, again, giving them awareness. We also have some software programming called Zello, and that's where our scholars get to know themselves better and then what type of careers may be interesting to them based on their likes. Our early learning program has a special place in my heart because we know that elementary is the foundation, well, pre-K is the true foundation. And so we have two parts for our early learning program work. One is to increase enrollment so that seats for our scholars to be able to participate in that opportunity, as well as we want to make sure that when they transition from pre-K to K, they have the skills that's needed to go into kindergarten. Earlier, Marcy talked about our portrait, and that truly was the first place we started this work. When our high school team went down to Nashville, they also extended the opportunity for a group of elementary educators to go down as well. Although the work was not focused on elementary, the team that went with me, we saw the potential there and how that work could be brought down to the elementary level. And so I'm really excited. I am excited, can you tell? I really am excited that this work is at the elementary level because, again, our scholars are to be empowered at this level, and they only build on what we give them throughout the years. So with our portrait, we started with the end in mind. It was, how do we want to send our elementary scholars up to the middle school? And so that's where we came up with our competencies and our soft skills that we wanted them to obtain. Inquiry-based learning going on in the classroom. Again, empowering our students and student agency for them to have voice, for them to wonder what they want to learn about, for them to be able to research things, for them to be able to solve problems, starting at the elementary level. And that will give them that firmer foundation when they go on to the middle school and start doing their own challenges at that level. And so we have a theory of action with this work. We believe that if we implement these 9 tactical plans, that's all about transforming our current traditional elementary school experience into a new learning opportunity for our scholars, and we monitor our outcomes, and that goes with what our superintendent has, our blueprint for excellence and all our KPIs. So we're going to be monitoring to make sure that we are making gains and we are doing the work that we said we are holding ourselves accountable to. Then our elementary scholars will be prepared and ready to go on to the middle school level. So our last slide is focused on what work we've currently done and what are some next steps. So again, we've been working with our tactical plans now for several years. And so some work is in progress that we are really excited about. So we have our elementary ambassadors. We have our essential learning experiences with our partnership with the GAR Foundation. We showed you that we have accomplished our portrait of a scholar. Now, we're not where we really want to be, because if you look at our portrait of a scholar, there's little icons around it. And those we were thinking about, have you ever been in the Girl Scouts or the Boy Scouts? And so those little pictures are like badges that we are thinking about they're going to be able to earn to say that they have proof that they've gained these competencies and soft skills. Again, all of that is to say because we're making them ready for that next learning experience at the middle school level. We are also doing work around our social emotional learning, our out-of-school time network design, our inquiry foundation is there. Our scholars, if you go to the elementary level next time, ask them about their butterfly project or their rocket project or their Veggie U projects, and they will be able to show you their journal where they're writing and they're connecting their work, and it's all standards-based. And that goes with our grade level IBLs. And then we have our work that's going strong with our Akron After School, which is, again, connecting our partners to the extended day programming. And then our bridge programming, which is our pre-K to K. So we have two phenomenal partners. We work with SEI and also Project Grad Akron to move our pre-K into K. So what are some next steps? We are going to continue with our planning and monitoring for year one implementation. We're working around our expectations for our portrait of an elementary scholar. We need to create a marketing plan, again, so that we are making sure our parents understand the work that's being done, and also our staff around our elementary, college, and career academy work. Equity of our resources, making sure, again, that all of our scholars get the same opportunities. Our partner engagement, strengthening that area, our inquiry development. And at our May 6th Board of Education, you'll have on your agenda to accept the addendum to the master plan. Do you have any questions?
Thank you, Ms. Howley and Ms. Ebright. Are there any questions? Vice President Jackson.
Can you go back to the previous slide, please? This is great work that you all are doing. Again, thank you for your intestinal fortitude and grit to stick with it and further explain each time you come before us. When you were talking about for the students as far as having a career fair, Ms. Edwards and the team over at Bookville did a phenomenal job with their career fair, and I just wonder about those type of collaborations to where it mimics something like that, because you know what they see they can be, right? And I think Akron got it right with going earlier, because you have to get in front of it earlier, so they continue to work towards those expectations. And so when we talk about, I think what I wanted to go back here for is because when we look at some of our programming, I like the Akron After School, and then when we say inquiry development, I realized that when I was at Finley, that it was a lot of inquiry-based activities in the Akron After School, with the planning, with the gardening, even with the carpentry level that they had those students doing when you see the formation and the building of how they built the tree houses. I say all that to say, because I know with speaking with Ms. Whitfield when I was at North, you know, they only had a $1,000 budget for Scholar Voice, and you know, it's the scripture say where your heart is, that's where your treasure is at, right? So where you put your money is how we know what you really care about. And so I'm just wondering with some of those things, like, and I can talk to you all offline, like the financial component of some of these things so that we can ensure that even if we're leveraging our relationships, because we have some fantastic community partners, to ensure that we are sustaining programming that is directly impacting and reaching our children, like I see these programs are, like the Akron After School. These are valuable programs, Scholar Voice and the things where it touches our family and our kids, because that's what everyone is here for. If the kids are not here, like everybody cry, they don't come to the schools. We have to provide what they need to stay in the school so that they come. And so we have to support those programming. So I just wanted to put that out there because we know that this is cost. But this is valuable cost. This is where money should be spent. And so I want to thank you, ladies, for your hard work. I've seen the fruits of these things, and I'm excited about it. The ambassadors are absolutely phenomenal. Every elementary school that I went in, the ambassadors were able to tell me about programs, about PBIS. They were able to clearly articulate. And it's just amazing to see that they have pride in their school, but more importantly, that they know what the expectations are and what is happening around the school building. So again, that's leadership. They can speak to adults, and they articulate the vision of the school and the things that they're participating in. So just great job, elementary team, and what you all are doing with the ambassadors and the various programs. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Jackson. Any other questions for our presenters? Dr. Molnar?
Thank you. And thank you also for your presentation, and thank you also for highlighting within the presentation that about the cost, as Vice President Jackson mentioned, and how, you know, we have support, we have community support, we can gain more community support. That's more important now than ever as we're having, you know, these levy conversations and things like that. So my questions mostly revolve around that, and here we have year one. So I was curious, and maybe it's just me, which year is year one? And where are we in that timeline?
Correct. So we're going to have to, you know, like I said, the elementary schools didn't wait for us. There were some really positive things, like the student ambassador program. The schools came to us and said, we want to get that going with our kids now. But it's one area of leadership, right? How do you replicate leadership opportunities for all kids and not just the ambassadors? And how do we make sure all students across the district are getting opportunities to demonstrate leadership? So that's work to do, right? So we'll have to audit sort of where we're at, what great practices are going on, where do we grow and build on those things. But there's a lot of things on those plans that we haven't even touched yet. When you get into the way of re-envisioning how your partners are engaging, and this is not to not honor the work that's already going on. Lots of our elementary schools have partners that have been longtime partners with them, and they help that individual school. College and Career Academy partnerships are around bringing sort of those real-world business experiences that work with your staff, that work with the leaders in the building, that work with the students, that work with these little leadership pods to really advise on what kids need to have out there in the world. Remember, our College and Career Academies are time and talent only. We never ask for money out of them. They're time and talent. So they come in as experts in the field to advise a fourth grade teacher on what does it really look like for the world of polymers in Akron, where the future, where your kids are going to be living. And so as a fourth grade teacher, I might not know a whole lot about that, but I can tap into that expertise to help me out. So it's a different way of approaching the partnership and looking for those types of things to happen. So, and I know you're talking about finances a little bit, but you know, we have a pretty strong structure in place with our academy coaches and being able to leverage and grow our existing structures that we have to wrap our arms around the elementary.
And I think elementary, our staff and principals, they're like experts in empowering our partners to like support us as far as wraparound supports. But now we're trying to identify the academic supports that, again, that inquiry-based learning. What would they need to do this job? And so I think the marriage of the two will take, again, that's transformational. And so that's the next level of work for us, is how do we empower our partners to help us in the academic arena?
Thanks. Follow
Thank
up?
you.
Can I
Are
follow
there
up?
any other questions? Did you have a follow-up, Dr. Molnar?
Yes.
I just wanted to make sure everyone was able to ask their question. Go ahead.
Thanks. back to the year one, I know that some things have already started and keep going, but selfishly, as a board member, I'm also curious, what do I need to know and when do I need to know it? Are we going to make a decision and vote on anything? So is there like an anticipated timeline as when something will come to us at the table that we will need to have a vote on?
There may be some things that we would need to pay attention to, especially if it's some sort of program or thing that we want to adopt across the system. I think our year one work is really going to be around the partner engagement piece and how we're looking closely at that. So I don't anticipate that there'd be something that you'd need to address anytime soon. We really want to build around the good work that's happening with the portrait and start thinking about that. So again, those things are sort of in progress. I don't think that there's something that we're going to have to dig into. We'll have the whole teams come together. Remember, there were sort of strategies around what year 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 would look like, because this is a 5-year addendum, right? So there's a lot of stuff in there. And then COVID came and we had some delays, and so we came back to it, and we're going to have our teams come back together and sort of prioritize what do we want to see, where are we at with some of this, and what's our priority for year one, and start to phase out the next 5 years of that work. So that by the end of 5 years, we would have implemented the things that are in the master plan to the best of our fidelity and cost efficiency.
Thank you. Member Sykes?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't have a question, but I do have a comment. Let me first of all apologize. I realized when I sit down, my watch was going off because I was talking very loud last time. So I apologize for that. But I would say to you, great presentation, but I would ask the president and the superintendent that I think that this will be better served in the committees, and I would look forward to one day that we would have these type of presentations in our committee hearings so that we can get more into this than not doing this type of presentation at our former board meetings. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Mr. Alexander?
I just want to comment. Thank you, ladies, first of all, but comment on the work that you guys are doing. Appreciate the work that you're doing, because the work you're doing is really good, and it's really stuff that really touches kids, which is what we need to have touch the kids. It's not about all of us, the adults. Make sure it's about the kids. So appreciate you guys doing this, and this is good work. I look forward to seeing more as we continue to roll it out so that we can continue to impact our kids in a positive manner so we can get positive things coming out of Akron Public Schools. So we need to get rid of all the negative stuff that's going on, and chit-chatting and so forth out there, because we're doing a lot of good things, but people don't really want to know that. Some of them don't know it, some don't want to see it, and some don't want us to be seen doing it. So we want to make sure it's seen and continue to do the work that you guys do, and so we can continue to market these things as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Alexander. Thanks again for the presentation. I just want to echo when I do visit as well, as Vice President Jackson stated earlier, the student ambassadors are absolutely just amazing. And just to see a young person with so much knowledge, so much vocabulary, and I'm like, how are they fitting all of that information in their brain so effortlessly? So they're doing a great job. And again, thank you for your work on this.
Thank you. And maybe I wasn't clear. On one of my slides, we did take to instructional policy subcommittee. I just put instructional policy, but that was the subcommittee we presented to in January.
Thank you. I know that, which is why I'm wondering why Steve Wire is coming before this board. Thank you. I appreciate it. Yes.
Thank you. Okay, we will move on to item 4.0 on our agenda, Superintendent's Report. Dr. Robinson.
Thank you, President Archery.
And I'm sorry, there are no requests to address the board. I just jumped over that, but there are none at this time. Thank you.
Akron Public Schools have been identified for the following schools having received Momentum Award from the Ohio Department of Education and Workforce. So I just want to recognize those schools: Helen Arnold, CLC, KCLC, Glover, CLC, Reimer, CLC, and also Schumacher, CLC. And this award is for districts and buildings that have demonstrated outstanding improvement and achievement while also continuing to show growth. And so I just want to say congratulations to the building principals, to the teachers, to the staff, to the scholars, to our families, our parents for entrusting their children in us and allowing us to educate them in our community, who has been very supportive of the work that we've been trying to do with these schools. And so again, congratulations, and also to our central office staff that is also working diligently with these schools and around improvement. A special event that was over at David Hill on April the 12th. Football legend, Heisman Trophy winner, and Football Hall of Fame inductee, Mr. Tim Brown, delivered a motivational talk there at David Hill CLC. So I was able to catch the tail end of the visit. And so I thank him for my football that I have with his signature on it. But this meant a lot to our children and to our staff there as well. And so I just want to say thank you to him for, because he wanted to go to David CLC. The Akron Urban League, the reception, thank you for allowing me to attend for Ms. LeGrier, who I did have the pleasure to meet with her and to receive some of her insight around things in the community and things that we could do. And so I appreciate her candor and opportunity to meet her. The cosmetology show, I did have a chance to visit that over at Bookdale. I think we have kids that are already ready for life experiences when it comes to cosmetology. They're doing a great job, and so thank you to the teacher and the principal there, the kids, because it was truly student-led. And as you said, Ms. Autry, thank you to our masonry department, because those kids, the teacher there really helped to support that effort. Had a great time with the King CLC on Saturday. Thank you to the PTA for my t-shirt and for the opportunity and invitation to attend. Got a chance to meet some of the former administrators of King and some of the former teachers who have now retired and who are still engaged in some ways with education. Board members, you received a little card that you can share with people. This is just to promote our stories and the great things that we're having that are going on in Akron Public Schools. And so as you meet people in the public, constituents, family members, church members, people in the grocery store, you could share, just give them a card. It has a QR code on the back of it, so it allows for people to scan it and take some to stories that we have, videos and different things that we're trying to do to promote our district positively. Thank you to the masonry class again for the flower boxes over at Helen Arnold. I'm just in total amazement. I'm still hanging on to the last time I was there when I first got here, just the astonishing work that they do. Akron Public Schools made a name for itself last Wednesday and Thursday at the Ohio HOSA State Leadership Conference. So our children did an outstanding job of representing us, competing, and on Garfield, North, and Bookdale chapters, and so they had a chance to compete in the ceremony at Glass City Center in Toledo. And just want to also make note of our Be Kind 330. And today I'm sharing a story with you about Brian Patterson and the day assistant custodian. Mr. Patterson works at Garfield CLC. AAA had their graduation at Garfield And the next morning, Mr. Patterson found an envelope with $145 in it while doing his usual morning pickup. He turned it in to the head custodian, who contacted AAA, and the envelope was returned to the student who had dropped it. Mr. Will White, the supervisor of custodian services, sent this in as a story and said as a quote, "Brian should be nominated for a spotlight or a shout out or something. The dude is awesome," end quote. I agree, and thank you to Mr. White, and thank you to Mr. Patterson for showing kindness and also modeling to our scholars about what it is to be kind and doing the right thing.
Thank you, Dr. Robinson. Are there any questions? Thank you. Moving on to item 5.1, we have the approval of our previous meeting minutes. We'll start by asking for any additions or corrections to those minutes. Seeing none, we will entertain a motion to accept the regular meeting minutes for the Thursday, April 11th, 2024 meeting. Is there a motion?
So moved.
It's been moved by Mr. Alexander. Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been seconded by Member Hall. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please. Dr. Thompson.
Mrs. Sykes,
Yes.
Dr. Molinar,
Yes.
Mr. Alexander,
Yes.
Miss Autry,
Yes.
Miss Hall,
Yes.
Miss Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Perry.
Abstain as I was not present.
Motion carries 6-0 with one abstention.
Thank you. Next is item 5.2, approval of the special board meeting minutes from Thursday, April 18th, 2024. Is there a motion?
So moved.
It's been moved by Mr. Alexander. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been seconded by Vice President Jackson. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please. Dr. Thompson?
Dr. Molinar,
Yes.
Mr. Alexander,
Yes.
Miss Autry,
Yes.
Miss Hall,
Yes.
Miss Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Perry,
Abstain.
Mrs. Sykes.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0 with one abstention.
Thank you. Next, we will move on to item 18.1, approval of personnel recommendations. Dr. Robinson.
Thank you, President Archery. I wish to recommend approval of the personnel recommendations presented in categories 6 through 17.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the personnel recommendations?
I move to approve.
It's been moved by Mr. Perry. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been seconded by Mr. Alexander. Is there any discussion? Dr. Molnar.
Yes, I did notice that we have one retirement that is not here today. I thought she would be, but with all of the work that has been done with our Scholar Voice, and as we've been talking today, especially, my community reflection was centered around how important the Scholar Voice is, not just, within our schools, but to the community. The community wants to hear more from our students. I know Member Jackson also talked about amplifying student voice in her reflection. It's coming out in our plan. So I am just saying that we will miss our Scholar Voice representative, and I'm hoping we do not lose any momentum that we have for amplifying student voice, because I've seen wonderful things and hope more wonderful things come.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please. Dr. Thompson.
Mr. Alexander,
Yes.
Miss Autry,
Yes.
Miss Hall,
Yes.
Miss Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Perry,
Yes.
Mrs. Sykes,
Yes.
Dr. Molinar.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. Next is approval of resolutions and motions in our consent agenda. Dr. Robinson.
Thank you, President Archery. I would like to recommend the approval of the resolutions and motions presented in Category 22. They are in proper format, and I move for their approval, please.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move to approve.
It's been moved by Mr. Perry. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been seconded by Mr. Alexander. There is no discussion under consent agenda, but please note item 19.2 includes a second reading of Board Policy 0169.1.
If there, sorry, can I ask a question? So is 19.1 also in the consent agenda? Because you said 20, I didn't know it was 19 and 20.
I'm sorry, I'm looking at it incorrectly. It's 19.2.
So,
From 19 or 20.
19.2 is the second reading of Policy 0169.1. Public participation at board meetings, second reading.
Maybe I misunderstood. I thought we were voting on from 20 down. I didn't hear 19 through 20.
It's
That's
included
mine.
in the consent agenda.
Mine doesn't have.
Yeah, I don't have it
consent. Yeah, mine
included.
doesn't have that consent. It just has 19.1 and 19.2, and then it goes down to the consent agenda. My agenda is totally different. I don't know why.
is it in the printed copy?
So the consent agenda includes everything up to item 22.2.
So on my agenda in board docs, the only thing under the consent agenda was 22.1, acceptance of donations, and 22, textbook adoption.
Mine is the same.
If it includes 19.1 and 19.2, I move to take 19.1 and 19.2 off of the consent agenda.
One and 19.2 are under letters, legal and contract board policy. That's not under board consent agenda.
Okay.
Just take it out. If it's on there somewhere, just take it out. Oh, I agree, yeah. You're saying, but if it's on her, it's different. Just take it out. Yeah, the same rise. Yeah.
And apologies for the confusion. So after personnel recommendations, there's 19.1 under legal contracts and board policy for the school calendar. And so again, apologies for that confusion there. That is not under the consent agenda. That is a separate item. So at this time, we will entertain a motion for, you don't have to put on the calendar. So these are just for our informational purposes, 19.1 and 19.2. 19.1 is the calendar for informational purposes, and 19.2 is the second reading of policy 0169.1.
Madam President, since we have a motion on the floor, don't we have to vote on that as well before we can move on?
So I just wanted to clarify, because I included those items in the consent agenda when I should not have. So those items are for informational purposes. Again, 19.1 is the school calendar, 19.2 is board policy development. those aren't items that we need to vote on. It's for our information. And so next is the consent agenda, which includes the donations, the textbook adoption.
Sorry, Madam President, can we discuss the items in section 19?
So 19.1, again, is there for our information? Was there a question?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay. So 19.1 is the school calendar, and something that I have brought up several times that community members have brought to me is having school during our primary elections. I've only been a board member now for 2 primary elections, but I've had lots of concern, lots of emails from parents, from teachers, and from students about us having community members, which is great that we're using our CLCs for the primary elections. I think it's great that we are encouraging people to come into our buildings. However, we have our elementary students, our kindergartners, first graders, second graders, and people from the community can just wander into the buildings as they should during an election, but during the school day, using the bathrooms, and things as our students are. Sometimes people are smoking outside, and so I have expressed a lot of concern about having school during the primary election, and I was wondering if there has been any discussion, or because this is the first time I have had any opportunity to officially have a discussion about the calendar. First time I've seen that it looks like we are having school during the primary election, and sure, thanks.
Madam President, can I ask a question? A comment on that? On the agenda, when I'm looking at the calendar for the school year, on November the 4th, it says All Staff Development Day. Does that mean the kids are going to school as well, or are they off that day?
No, sir. The students are off from school on that day, but the staff is reporting.
So is that election day?
Yeah, but Ms. Deborah can address.
Okay, I'm sorry. My apologies.
No, that's okay.
Good evening. First of all, I'm going to do the last one first. At this point, the Ohio law states that general elections are the first Tuesday of November. So you are correct. November 4th, as Dr. Robinson has said, is scheduled for a professional development day. So students would not be in school. Voting could take place, but staff would report. To Dr. Molnar's question, at this point, we do not know when the primary elections will be for the year of 25. That does not come out until after the actual vote that takes place in November of 24. So at this point, you are correct. We do not have a date to tell you when. We may suggest that a change could, if available, be made where students would not be in school. Under the revised code, we are obligated to give our schools for public voting. We do not get to say, no, they're not available, which I know you are aware of. But at this point, we're only voting on the general calendar for 25-26, just for the approved holidays and the IID days. That doesn't mean we couldn't come back and ask the superintendent to recommend it, but we will have no idea until after November 4th of 24 as to when the primary may be. And having done this for a while, if you remember, this year it was March 19th. Last year it was May the 5th. The year before, it was in August. So we have to adjust our calendars depending on what the legislature does at the federal or state level as to when voting occurs when it comes to primaries. And this is the vote of only the beginning of the calendar for 25-26. So it isn't that it isn't a concern, and we certainly did what was necessary on the 19th of March by dispensing our safety team members out there to cover the buildings. And I actually got back today and was informed that the Summit County Board of Elections is now wanted to visit the current 19 sites that we use for a reevaluation, which is now just the election for this coming November. because we did come up with some parking questions before for the primary. So again, they go out, evaluate the buildings to see if they're ADA compliant and other things that the statute says that they must do. And that's why we do these each time. But this is just the basic beginning of the calendar for 25, 26. Does that help?
Yes, that does help, thank you. And I was under the impression that generally every time it was a general elections, like this year, it's a presidential year, so it was the first Tuesday in March, but on the off years, then it's the first Tuesday in May. So that was my understanding of our voting process.
Yes.
But I agree that visiting the sites is helpful, and I am thankful that we had a very successful election, this primary election, and I think that it's important also that it's not just good and safe for our students, but also for the voters. We don't want any voters to feel like they can't vote or it's not convenient for them to vote because of us holding school during that school day too. So I think it would be mutually beneficial for that. But when I brought this up during the last election, so this was the 2023
in May.
Yes, thank you. I was told it was too short of a runway. And then when I brought it up for this election, I was told we'd already approved the calendar, so it couldn't be changed because we already approved the calendar. So I'm just very concerned that we don't even have a placeholder. I feel like if Vegas put odds on something, they would probably say May 6th is going to be the primary election in 2025, a placeholder or something to signal to the community if we are or aren't planning to hold school during the election, or as I also asked a few months ago when I saw that this was coming up, what policies we would have as a district as far as people coming into and out of the buildings, because we're going to get that new computer system. Our voters going to need to register with their IDs into the computer system. While if that's the process for every day that adults are coming into the building, but now it's election day, and so I'm just really concerned with those logistics.
Okay, so the visitor management program, as you are aware, has been approved to move forward. On a general election, when we do not have students in school, they have very specific areas they enter the buildings which are monitored, and I'm going to use Ellett as an example. We changed it actually to door 20. It is not the main entrance to the building because it goes directly in to the one area down the hallway to the auxiliary gym. And that was the only way that they were allowed to come in and go out, and the election workers knew that. So each building is unique, and we have had to adjust the amount of items depending on the type of election, general or primary, presidential year, not presidential year. We recently got a call from Summit County asking us to provide them Jennings because they are now looking at the voting numbers and they need to divide one, and I advised them that Jennings was not appropriate for them to use because of the structure of the building. To get down to the gym, as you're well aware, it's a very steep staircase. It is not appropriate, and I just said to them they were welcome to go look, but I knew it would not meet their needs. So these are discussions that truly come up. It is a valid question you asked, but at this point, I can't give you an exact date. It may still be the legislative issue that it could be the first, Tuesday in May, but again, this comes out of the state legislature as to when things are needing to change and meet depending on the general election in November. Okay? I hope that's helpful. I'm sure Dr. Robinson and the staff will work diligently to make sure that all elections are safe, because it's a good thing for our students to be aware that we participate in a very strong democratic process. All righty? Dr. Robinson, anything else I can help with? Thank you.
Board members, are there any other questions regarding the calendar from Ms. Folk while she's at the podium? Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 19.2 is board policy development. Policy 0169.1, public participation at board meetings. This is our second reading of that. Are there questions around this? There's nothing to vote on, but if there are questions around this?
I do have a question, but I'll ask later. I don't need to ask it during this time. Thank you.
So the question, was around the calendar and why we're not voting today. So we are following our CBA in that it has to be 30 days from this point. So at our June 1st meeting is when we would be actually voting on the calendar. So today is part of that requirement that we presented. So.
Thank you.
It will be the June 10th meeting. Okay? Are there any questions around item 19.2? Okay. That is the second reading. We will move on now to the consent agenda, for real this time. Dr. Robinson.
Thank you, President Autry. I wish to recommend approval of the resolutions and motions presented in Category 22. They're in proper format, and I move for their approval, please.
Thank you. Is there a motion to accept and approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
It's been moved by Vice President Jackson. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been seconded by Dr. Molnar. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please. Dr. Thompson?
Ms. Autry,
Yes.
Ms. Hall,
Yes.
Ms. Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Perry,
Yes.
Mrs. Sykes,
Yes.
Dr. Molinar,
Yes.
Mr. Alexander.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. Next is approval of the business affairs recommendations. Dr. Robinson.
Thank you, President Autry. I wish to recommend approval of the business affairs recommendations presented in Category 24, please.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the business affairs recommendations?
So moved.
It's been moved by Mr. Alexander. Is there a second? It's been seconded by Member Hall. Is there any discussion? Dr. Molnar.
Sorry. I just wanted to point out the summer camps. I know there's a discussion in our last board meeting about the way our district is using and leveraging grant funds to support the summer camps for our students. So even though we are spending some money, we're saving a lot of money. So I asked the team how much we are saving, and they said because we are having some of the camps be a $50 fee, but they said that they are estimating a $500 value per child per camp that we're asking for a $50 fee for because of, you know, a lot of things, but the quality, length, duration of the camps. And I thought that was a really big number, and I started to look around because I always, by default, sign up my kids for our camps, and I think that is a spot-on estimate, maybe even more, because of how wonderful our camps are. So I just wanted to highlight this is a way that we are not only stretching our budget here as a district, but also saving our families money and providing a value and a service.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion? Vice President Jackson?
Yes, thank you. I don't know, Deb Polk might need to come back to the mic for this. So at 24 points, where is it? for the purchase of the computers, 24.18. I believe that's it. About the students, 79 desktop computers to support CTE high school pathways to be assembled by APS high school IT students who will receive a valuable real-world learning experience by building these esports-capable computers, and will save the district a significant amount of money by not having to purchase a computer with these components already built in. I think this is fantastic. This is the same thing that I was talking about when I said the Bookto Masonry program could have repaired the windows at Bookto, and that it's a real-world, real-life experience, and we can still save money by paying our students, even if it's a fraction, because they're learning and also can receive a stipend. And so I love that we're doing this in this capacity, and it will save the district money. And I'm just wondering, I think a lot of our programs, we have catering and we have activities throughout the district that our learners should cater it. But yes, it's a learning base, but it's like a paid internship that even if they get a portion, because so that the students have a sense of significance in the skill that they're building, and that we are investing monetarily into that because they need money as well. So I just was putting, because when I saw this here, I'm like, this is the same thing when I said those kids could have did the windows at Bookto.
And this is, I want to give credit to Nate Rurian, who's our CTE coordinator. This was his brainchild. This is the regular 5-year replacement cycle that we do on devices. And the expanding of esports has become huge in our high schools. However, we didn't have enough esports labs.
Yeah.
So instead of just replacing with regular devices, we were able to price out all the equipment that has to go into building out the esports device and replacing that lab. And then, since we're able to sort of build your own, it's a PBL for the students to build the esports lab. So instead of just replacing with regular computers, it's a savings of about $50,000.
$50,000. You see, even if we pay the kid $10,000 out of that. Now y'all laughing, but
it's money we get to keep for programming and the other things we can do for them that would have just been spent on devices that weren't suitable for the esports labs.
Yeah, so thank you so much, and to Nate, wonderful. This is that type of thinking. This is what great teachers do differently, and people that work on programs. But thank you.
Absolutely, thank you.
Thank you. Member Hall?
Quick question. What school, thank you, Madam President. Is this for all all the high school students in APS, or is this going to particular schools?
Several of our high schools and middle schools have esports labs already. Mm-hmm. So this is as we replace those labs. We have a cycle of replacement, so as a lab might phase out because it's aged out, this would be the first time we've done it this way, where we're able to say, let's build it, when we replace them, we're going to replace them with esports. So our intent would be to make sure that these high-quality esports labs are across as we go through this phase of recycling, or phase of repurchasing.
Okay, because the reason why I asked, by North BMI school cluster, they really didn't have any working equipment to do the esports. They had all old, outdated equipment.
Yeah,
so will their school be getting some of these new computers?
As we go through the next replacement cycle for them too, whatever their CTE lab is, the regular devices in outside of CTE classrooms would be in the district replacement cycle, which is a separate pot.
So then what schools will be getting these 79 computers?
I'll have to bring back all the lists of where we currently have esports labs and where these ones are going for you too.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any more questions for Ms. Ebright while she's up here?
Thank you.
All right.
Dr. Robinson?
Mrs. Hall, we're going to check on that, and I'll get back to you in terms of what they're, because all of this is on cycles, so I need to find out, but I'll get with the technology.
Some schools have stuff working now, and there's some schools that don't have anything working. And we need to start pouring into the schools that don't have stuff working instead of continuing. I mean, yes, we want to upgrade everyone, right? But we want to make sure each child has the same opportunity. But if we continue to pour into certain schools and not others.
Microphone.
You can hear me. You know my voice loud. No, no, I was just saying that, I just want to make sure that across the board that all the schools are being supported and not just certain schools. I want to make sure that every child has an opportunity. And like I said, by North BMI cluster, they look at other schools and they're like, well, they get to do this and that. And we have old equipment that don't even work, and the teachers are just looking defeated, right? Because they want to give the kids an opportunity, but
Well, let
there's
me
nothing there.
let
So-
me investigate that
Yeah.
because this is my first summer here. So,
Got it. Well, thank you.
thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please, Dr. Thompson.
Did I miss the motion to approve?
For business affairs?
Yes, right. I did.
Yeah, the motion to approve
Yeah.
the business affairs recommendations. Yeah, we were in the discussion.
Okay, my fault. Okay, my fault. That's not her fault, that's my fault. Sorry.
I seconded it. Yeah.
Oh,
I made the motion.
thank you. Apparently, I missed that. Thank you. Ms. Hall,
Yes.
Ms. Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Perry,
Yes.
Mrs. Sykes,
Yes.
Dr. Molinar,
Yes.
Mr. Alexander,
Yes.
Ms. Autry.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. Next is President's Report. Briefly, I just want to thank my colleagues for their commitment to professional development. I think we exceeded the goals that were set in January, and so we don't have anything else on the calendar at this time for professional development. So if there are new topics, I'm asking my colleagues to make sure you get those to me so that we can continue to, again, be the best versions of ourselves. So also, I just wanted to share out that I did email the board out a document that I think we already had before, but just as a refresher from the Ohio Auditor of State, the frequently asked questions around levy, just because we have some strict guidelines that we have to follow as board members that are new, and I think it's really good that we all become familiar with those so that we are not in violation of anything. So just take the time when you have it to review those and be familiar with those as we're moving forward. And then also the document that we have been speaking of so that we can have in hand as we're out communicating with our constituents is currently still being worked on, and I just wanted to report out that we should hopefully have that in our hands for our May meeting. And also, I just wanted to acknowledge the many donations that we continue to receive. We've already voted on these, but I just wanted to say out loud, thank you. There were donations ranging from $5 up to $100 specifically for our Project Rise program, which services our students and families experiencing homelessness. So thank you to all of those donors. And then also Art Boosters from Firestone CLC made donations as well to support the scholars, as well as DonorsChoose.org to North High School. Thank you for those donations, big and small, that support our scholars. And that concludes my report at this time. Next, we will move on to Treasurer's Report. Dr. Thompson.
Thank you, Madam President. So today I'm just going to cover the March financial report. I appreciate your understanding that in canceling our Finance Committee meeting last week, this would normally be something I would cover at the committee level, but since we didn't have the opportunity to do that, I was asked to do it tonight. So if you could turn your page, it's an attachment on your computer, or perhaps you've printed it off. It is the on page 3 across the top are your current year-to-date revenue collections. And as you can see, there is a $4.7 million unfavorable number compared to what was forecasted. That's very misleading because we have about $3 million that's ready to hit the books on tax collections, but when we run the report, it's only going to count what's actually there. So that number is going to change fairly dramatically in the next few days. Then you'll see the next box over, $1.675 million, which is unfavorable to the compared to the forecast, which is our current expenditures. One of the big, and we'll go into it a little bit more in just a minute, but one of the hits on our current expenditures is insurance costs are higher than projected. That's employee insurance claims are higher than what we had projected, which was still higher than what we had projected any of the years before. I'm not sure if it's the COVID rebound and people are now going to the hospitals again or having elective surgeries at this point, but those are up, and contractually those insurance costs are not passed down to employees in this current contract. It's frozen. So every increase is absorbed by the general fund. So that's why you're seeing a larger variance than what we have historically seen or what we anticipated. So that last box over the blue box, the negative impact on the 5-year forecast, says $6.3 million. That's probably more like $3.3 million at this point. And that is still subject to some change. But even with those numbers, without that $3 million, at the bottom of page 3, you can see that the overall cash carryover still increases by $1.8 million. So we're still not in deficit spending at this point. Then if you flip to page 5, I'd like to bring that to your attention. Page 5, it's talking about the collections, and that's where it highlights for you to see where you'll see cash flow actual estimated versus the forecast amount, and you can see if you plug in $3 million in there, that gap closes significantly. It's a $3.9 million gap. $3 million in change will significantly close that gap. Not completely, but very, very, very close. And even at that variance, not counting the $3 million, it's a 1.26% variance. So imagine, to kind of make it real life, take whatever dollar amount you have right now in your savings account. Imagine estimating 1 year from now how much is going to be in there, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. Would you nail it by the penny? Unlikely. So, so we're doing the best we can to forecast how this turns out. We're 1.26% off, but it's actually about half that once that $3 million hits the books. So from that perspective, I feel pretty good about where we are. If you flip to page 6, that's where you kind of see the total hit to everything. So where are we compared to this same time last year? We're about 75% of the way through the school year. We'll be coming back with a newly updated 5-year forecast for your approval in May. And you can see in that gold box on the right towards the bottom, we have increase of about $19 million. It's a little over $19 million. And that's a 7.7% higher than the expended amount last year. So it's a 7.7% increase, which is not all that surprising considering pay raises across the board at 4% plus steps, plus changes going from one category to another. Perhaps I picked up a master's degree, or perhaps I picked up 8 more hours of graduate work, moves me into a different slot. So that it accounts for about $3.5 million of it, close, $3.3 million. Insurance costs, though, take a look at those, $5.3 million, offset 0. So that is I think, and when you look at the economy and how things are more expensive, so is healthcare, and we're seeing that hit our books as well. So if you flip to page 7, it tells you that, again, the fiscal year is 75% complete. Monthly cash flow compared to the actual 9 months versus 3 months of estimated. So we're down to 3 months of estimated, and we're going to be pretty doggone close to what we have forecasted. So We'll come back in May with an updated 5-year forecast. I'll build it predicated on different dollar amounts being cut so that we have some flexibility in it and can move to whichever number actually matches more closely to where we end up when it's said and done. So are there any questions about the financial report?
Any questions? Member Sykes?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Dr. Thompson, for doing this. I know this is a very difficult week for you, and I appreciate you giving that this quick overview. So with this fiscal year being about 75% complete, do you foresee that, and right now we're not in the deficit spending point, but do you see by the end of the next 25% if we're going to end June with the deficit?
I suspect we'll have a negative variance. I'm anticipating that, but I think that number is going to be, maybe $2 million, somewhere in that range is what I'm thinking at this point. So $2 million off our estimate of a $370 million budget is pretty low percentage of being off. So that's absorbable. We'll still have positive cash carryover, and then we'll move into deficit spending next year.
Okay. Thank you. Madam Chair, Dr. Thompson, just one more thing. So as we start to continue to look at the levy and whether or not we're going to actually put a levy on the ballot in November, let me just ask you if we could just quickly talk about one area that we no doubt will get some conversation on. So we've talked about the levy as it relates to North High School and being part of that, as well as the some operating expenses. So the question still remains, but what is happening to Middle South? And I think that if we could just give just a quick overview on where we are with Middle South, and the funding for Middle South, our certificate of participation, or COPS, and where we are with that, and why that is not a part of what we're looking at with the levy and the bond issue.
So we took out a COPS, a certificate of participation, which is essentially a low interest rate mortgage using other properties in the district as collateral. That's how that money was gathered. It's not the full project. The full project is $63 million. There are $42 million in COPS. The rest is general fund money that we set aside. So that money is already received. We have it. We've invested it. We're making money off that currently. So that money, by the board vote, was earmarked to replace Pfeiffer Elementary School and Miller South into one building, which the plans are to construct that on the Kenmore campus, the old Kenmore campus. So that process is beginning. The funds are there. We'll start drawing off that. Purchase orders will come in into the treasurer's office soon, and we'll pay that out of the earmarked general fund dollars first, and then we'll move into our COPS, as we're going to let that sit and earn as much interest as we can over the course of the next probably 2 years before it's all the way spent down. So that's the process where we're at right now, and we've had a lot of delays in selecting the architectural firm, which is going to set us back a little bit, but hopefully we'll get a winner like we had last year, and they could have worked through most of this past winter. So hopefully that'll stay true. So at this point, and then there's dollars earmarked for demolition of those buildings if in fact that is the will of the board to demo those. And I know that's an interest of the city as well, that we don't leave blighted buildings behind.
Madam Chair, may I? Madam Chair, Dr. Thompson, just to be clear, so the COPS, the certificate of participation, giving the administration the approval to proceed with this did go through board, through proper procedure during the last term. All of that was approved upon before you made any movements in this process.
That's correct. It was, if I recall, it was July's board meeting. Correct. So we had probably, it seemed like 4,000 different plans, but it really wasn't that many, but it was probably 15 or 16. And finally, the board came to resolution on a phase 1 and a phase 2 of that plan, and phase 2 included North High School. That's the reason for proposing a bond issue as part of any levy effort combined, so that would move us into phase 2 to collect the resources needed to construct North High School.
Thanks, and I promise this is my last question, Madam Chair. May I? So what was the thinking behind using the certificate of participation of COPS instead of taking Middle South through the same process as we are with North High School and operating budget? The levy, what was the thought between not using a levy or not using bonds?
Right. Well, it's not uncommon at all for public schools to use COPS or use different mechanisms in order to collect revenue. So by statute, a school district can indebt itself without a vote up to 9% of our total property valuation, which we're nowhere near. It's a fairly small amount compared to total property valuation. So it was an option that was presented to the board. We could have gone on the ballot for a bond issue, or we could have exercised the ability to do a COPS issuance, and the board decided to do a COPS issuance.
Thank you, Dr. Thompson. Are there any other questions around the financial report for March? Thank you. Next is 27.2 is a resolution to approve the March financial report. Is there a motion to accept the March 24 financial report?
I move to accept.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Perry and seconded by Member Sykes. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please. Dr. Thompson?
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mrs. Sykes?
Yes.
Dr. Molinar?
Yes.
Mr. Alexander?
Yes.
Ms. Autry?
Yes.
Ms. Hall?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you, Dr. Thompson. Next, we will have our committee reports. Legal Contracts and Board Policy Committee. Dr. Molnar.
Thank you, Madam President. The Legal Committee met on April 15th, and at our January 27 whole board meeting, we present our board goals of being a policy-making board. So we brought our third policy of the year so far to committee or to the meeting today for a second reading. Today we brought policy 10691, public participation. There was a little confusion. We discussed that at our March 18 meeting of getting it on the agenda, so thank you, Madam President, for adding that to the agenda tonight. In general, this is the same as our current policy. The main difference or the main addition to this is specifically saying that it's public participation at all board meetings, including the regular, special, and committee. So that's the primary difference to this. But we also have more in the pipeline. So anybody who wants to join us in person or via live stream at our next committee meeting, we will be continuing to discuss policy 5120, assignment within district, bylaw 0131, our legislative emergencies, and 165-1 regular meetings. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Molnar. Are there any questions? Thank you. Next is Finance and Capital Management Committee. which we heard that they were canceled, so we will move on.
Let me just say, if I could.
Yes,
So yeah, our
Mr.
next
Perry.
meeting is May 13th at 4:30.
Thank you. Next is Instructional Policy Student Achievement Committee. Vice President Jackson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. No report. We meet, our next meeting is April 29th here at the board at 4:30.
Thank you. Next is Equity Committee.
No report.
Thank you. There is no unfinished business. I don't see any new business. And there is not a need to recess into executive session. So at this time, we will entertain a motion to adjourn. Moved by Mr. Alexander. Is there a second?
A second.
Second by Member Hall. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please, Dr. Thompson.
Dr. Molinar?
Yes.
Mr. Alexander?
Yes.
Ms. Autry?
Yes.
Ms. Hall?
Yes.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mrs. Sykes?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. We are adjourned at 7:21 p.m.